All right. Think we are ready to start. Let me go to my right tab here. Tours. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna find everything I'm looking for when I'm not looking for it. All right, where? All right, we'll roll with it. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Shernita Lee, and I'm the president of the Tau Mu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I would like to welcome you all to tonight's Wealth and Estate Planning virtual workshop hosted by our chapter in partnership with Legacy Suites. Um, AKA was founded in 1908 on the campus of Howard University. It's the first Greek letter organization established by African American college educated women, built on a foundation of scholarship, service, and sisterhood. As president, I'm honored to open this space where knowledge meets empowerment. We believe that legacy is not just what we leave behind, it is what we live with intention today. So tonight's workshop is going to be a reflection of that belief. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to recognize the incredible members of Tau Mu Omega chapter who are here tonight. Also would like to recognize other members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Thank you all for being here and for your dedication and service to make events like these possible. Your commitment to excellence and sisterhood continues to uplift our chapter and our community. I also would like to extend heartfelt appreciation to all of our community partners. I would list them off, but if you list, you're going to forget somebody. So I would like to thank all of the community partners from near and far for being here tonight for this important event. Your collaboration strengthens our mission and expands our reach. So thank you again. With that, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Gina Chandler, who is the Vice President of the Tau Mu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to introduce tonight's keynote speaker, Sonia K. Blake, a visionary CEO, speaker, author, and poet with more than 30 years of business and leadership experience. Based in the Los Angeles area, Ms. Blake is a highly sought-after professional motivator who has leveraged her considerable knowledge, expertise, and skills to help business leaders, nonprofit organizations, and more than 40,000 others across the nation develop the pathway to personal and financial success. A graduate of Yale University with a Bachelor of Arts in Art History and Photography and the UCLA Anderson School of Management's MBA program, Ms. Blake has held numerous leadership roles across the fields of business, government, and the arts, including leadership positions with the City of Los Angeles and the California Governor's Office. With a rich background rooted in resilience and determination, from her upbringing as the daughter of Jamaican immigrants and early work on a tobacco farm, to her Emmy-nominated production career and her efforts in raising over $10 million for nonprofit causes, Ms. Blake embodies the spirit of hard work and determination that good financial success and planning necessitates. Her passion for empowering individuals and communities through personal and financial wellness aligns perfectly with today's workshop and its focus on empowering individuals to ensure their personal and financial legacies for generations to come. Estate planning and financial wellness are critical foundations for securing not only our own futures, but also the well-being of the loved ones we leave behind. Thoughtful planning ensures that your hard-earned assets, values, and legacies are protected and passed on according to your wishes, providing peace of mind and financial security for generations. Through her Leadership Becomes Poetic model, and as the English professor, I love that, proactive, open, empathetic, transformational, illustrative, and communal, Ms. Blake blends poignant storytelling and poetry to connect with her audiences and foster their personal and professional growth. So please join me in welcoming Sonia K. Blake as she guides us on the path to taking control of our financial futures through thoughtful estate planning and personal empowerment. Ms. Blake, I'll yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. I appreciate it very much. And thank you, Dr. Lee, Dr. Chandler, for having me tonight to be able to share with you a little bit, share some energy, share this space, and share some wisdom and insights so that we can all together advance and grow and expand, not only for ourselves and our families, but for our entire community. So I'm so glad that you were able to get a little bit of a sense of my background. And as I look around the gallery here on the Zoom room, I see everyone, all of us, right? I see mothers and sisters and grandmothers. I see all of us. And we women in particular, we have such a strong role in the family with regard to nurturing and caretaking. And what we need to do is make sure that we are also taking care of ourselves and administering that self-care that it takes to be financially self-sufficient, and then to also leave that legacy for the generations to come. Right? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I'm so thankful to have this opportunity, and so thankful that each and every one of you decided to spend some time being mindful about your wealth and your financial future, because it is incredibly important, and not everybody takes the time to do that. So I'm really thrilled that we get to do that tonight. So I see I've got a little bit of a glare. I'm going to move to the side here. So what I'd like to do is just share my screen here and share with you, let's see, sharing's not turned on quite yet. Let me see if anybody can give me sharing possibility, then that'll be terrific. All right, fantastic. All right, great. So what we're going to do is we're just going to spend a little bit of time here thinking about and talking about estate planning. Now, if you're interested in just kind of learning about where you are financially right now, thinking about where you are and how you can grow, and learning some new tools for potentially growing your finances into the future, then you are in the right place, because we're going to talk about tonight empowerment through estate planning and unlocking financial security and building generational wealth. So not just wealth for the short term, but for the long term. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to share with everyone about that. So let's start with a little story. You know, we hear a lot about various celebrities that are in the news, and we hear different stories about them and their finances and what happens. But let's just take a little closer look here, a deeper dive into a particular story. So this particular celebrity, let's see if you can guess who this is. This was a boy who grew up in the Midwest to musician parents, and proved from a very early age to have incredible musical talent, but he also had an ailment. He had epilepsy. And so there were times when he had epileptic fits and he was unable to control how people perceived him. And that really shaped his identity, his persona. So what he decided to do was to be very flamboyant and very big, and he would determine how people were going to see him by his demonstrative acts and being the center of attention. And it was his way of taking some portion of self-control, right? And control over his environment. Well, he was incredibly talented, and he ended up getting a contract with Warner Brothers, was phenomenally successful. He wrote movie soundtracks. He won a Grammy Award. And yet, unfortunately, he was a very tortured soul because of many reasons: his health, his parents, the breakup of his family. He was devastated, and he got caught up in drug use, and he actually died of a fentanyl overdose in, when was it, 2016, at the young age of 57. And he passed away, leaving an estate estimated at $156 million. And what ensued was infighting and backbiting and family members confused and taking it to the courts to try to get a piece of this person's estate, but with no will in place to designate how he wanted his assets to be divvied up among his family members or charities of his choice. It was a nightmare and a mess, and it took 6 years for everything to get settled. It was a loss of opportunity for his family to come together. It was a loss of opportunity for him to determine himself how he would be perceived and how his legacy would be passed on. And it was a loss of opportunity for the community that could have benefited if he had decided to consider charitable organizations in his community that could have helped youth coming up after him facing similar challenges that he had faced in his life. So what a loss and opportunity. Any guesses about who this is describing? Any guesses? Anybody want to raise their hand or come off mute and share? Any
You have some
guesses
in the
about?
chat. You have some in the chat. Yeah. And they somehow all guess the same person.
Let's see what we got. All right, y'all. Let's where's my ability to move? There you go. You were right. You were right. I guess I did a really good job describing him, gave you too much detail. But no, you know, because he's such a beloved personality and he had so much life and so much wealth. And yet, if someone like a celebrity like Prince, okay, can take a misstep with regard to his finances, how much more could those of us who don't necessarily have all the advisors and all of the access and all of the resources to be able to do that? But the good news, unfortunately, Prince did die without a will, leading to a prolonged legal battle over his estate. But the good news is that we do not have to follow in his footsteps in that way. That's what this seminar is about. So we have two objectives for today. And this is what's going to help us chart a different path than some celebrities like Aretha Franklin and Michael Jackson and Al Green. I mean, it's there. The list is long and detailed, unfortunately. Bob Marley, many others that of celebrities we've heard of have fallen into this trap. But what we're going to do is we're going to equip ourselves with some knowledge and information and insights so that we can begin to investigate and get access to information so we can take a different path, a better path for ourselves, our families, and our communities. So tonight we're going to do two things. One, we're going to familiarize ourselves with some of the tools to plan ahead for our financial legacy. Okay. And then number two, we're going to empower ourselves with how to get the most benefit out of some of these tools that are available. So we'll not only take a look at the tools, but we'll also take a look at how to get the benefit out of the tools. So one of the excellent opportunities that we have is to utilize the resources of existing organizations, companies, platforms that have a wealth of information for us to learn from. And Legacy Suite is one of those. You'll find information at legacysuite.com about this group, but this is a group that I've recently gotten involved with because they're so mission aligned. You heard some of my background, a passion for financial self-sufficiency, particularly in the communities that I am a part of. And Legacy Suite likewise is dedicated to empowering all communities, but in particular Black communities through financial literacy and estate planning. Also, one of their missions is to really emphasize and educate on the importance of estate planning for everyone. It's not just for celebrities like Prince, but it's for all families to be able to plan ahead and benefit. So let's just talk about some definitions here so we can understand exactly what are we talking about. So we're going to talk about estate planning, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about planned giving, but we're not really focused on that tonight. We're thinking about estate planning. So to give you a brief and simple definition, estate planning is the preparation of financial arrangements in case of disability or death. Okay, so it's planning ahead in case we become unable to manage our own affairs, or when we pass away. After our lifetime, we want to make sure that we're very intentional and proactive about how our assets are distributed so that our friends and family, our beneficiaries, can have that peace of mind, have clarity on what our wishes were, and we can have that implemented in an efficient and an effective way. There's also a portion of estate planning called planned giving. Now, sometimes we leave assets to friends and family. Sometimes assets are left to our favorite charities, and we plan that ahead through estate planning. So that's what planned giving is. Now, why do folks do that? Well, there are some great reasons, like clarity, so that people kind of know our wishes. And in addition, through certain planned giving and estate planning instruments, you can actually reduce or eliminate your taxes. So the government has set up mechanisms so that we can, as private individuals, we can give to our heirs and make sure that we're taking care of them. And that will alleviate some of the pressure on the government budget. So the government wants to encourage us to be proactive in that way. So there are some potential reductions or even elimination of income tax through estate planning, capital gains taxes. So that's when you have an asset, say you purchased Amazon stock way back when, and now it's worth $1 gazillion. Well, you have to pay tax on the amount that that stock has appreciated in value. And sometimes it can be quite sizable when the stock market's doing really well. So if you happen to want to sell at a time when the market's way up, then you're going to be facing some capital gains taxes. But there are instruments in estate planning. If you put those into a trust or you donate to a charity, you can avoid or reduce the capital gains tax. So that's a benefit. And then there's estate taxes. So there are estate taxes of passing your money down to the next generation. And so through estate planning, though, you can avoid and reduce some of those estate taxes, which is very beneficial. Make sure that less money goes to taxes and more money goes to where you want it to go as an individual. So some common myths at this point, some ideas start to come up, and we want to start to debunk some of these myths, right? So one common myth is that estate planning is only for wealthy individuals, wealthy families, the Carnegies, wealthy individuals. And that's simply not true. If you have assets and you care about where they go after your lifetime, then estate planning benefits everyone, really, regardless of the size of your estate. Secondly, some people might say that estate planning is just way too complicated. And so it's definitely something that's done in conjunction with some experienced and credible advisors. But the truth is that there are ways to simplify the process and to make sure that you have access to the resources you need to kind of guide you step by step so you can put together your estate plan. Today, we're going to simplify some of the ideas very much, and that'll really help to get started. And then thirdly, there's this myth that, I'll do it later. I've always got time. I can always do it later. It's really for older individuals. Estate planning is something to think about, in the later years of life. And indeed, it is something to think about in the later years of life, but not only in the later years, because it really makes sense to plan ahead. Tomorrow is not promised, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. And at the same time, there are wonderful plans that we can make today to benefit us throughout this lifetime, and then also dispose of and pass on those resources and assets wisely after our lifetime. So so planning early does afford us with security and flexibility as life circumstances change. So definitely makes sense to keep that in mind. So 3 reasons why estate planning is important and beneficial. One is asset protection. So rather than the assets just dissipating and frittering away to nothing, protects the assets. It makes sure that the assets are distributed, tax advantages are maximized so that the money doesn't get wasted. Hard-earned money shouldn't be wasted, right? So that's one of the benefits of planning ahead. A second one is building generational wealth. Um, Sorry, I got ahead of myself here. Building generational wealth is a second reason why estate planning is important, because it can create new income streams, actually. It can create new income streams for you and your family. It can preserve and transfer wealth across generations. And so it really helps to strengthen and buttress families into the future, and whole communities benefit as we start to do better as a community. As we start to do better as families, we begin to do better as a community as well. And then thirdly, community impact. If and when you want to foster social change with your assets, then you have the opportunity to do that through estate planning. So let's get into some of the specifics of the types of planned gifts, the actual instruments. Now, there are a wide variety of estate planning instruments, and these are just a few of them. So first and foremost, let's talk about the ones that offer clarity. So for example, bequests, how you might want to designate in your will where your assets will go. A bequest in a will is a very simple way to designate. You can designate to your beneficiaries, your children, your grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whomever you choose, to a charity if you choose to. And it makes it very clear what it is that you intend to happen with your assets. Now, what it doesn't offer is tax advantages, because a will is revocable. So you can change your mind while you're still alive, who you want to give to, how much you want to give to whom. So one of the good sides of that is a lot of flexibility, right? There's a tremendous amount of flexibility with wills. You're not locked into deciding today exactly what you want to do forever. You can make a plan for today, and then at any time during your lifetime, you can make a new plan, and it'll be clear what it is that you choose. So that is a will. Now, another instrument that offers flexibility, a little bit less flexibility, so that it can offer some tax advantages. So it's really a balance, right? The government will give you tax advantages if you make a commitment to designate a trust, or if you plan to give some of your assets to charity. If you make that commitment without taking it back, then they'll give you tax advantages. But if you make a plan and you want your flexibility, then maybe you will not get as many of the tax advantages. So it's really kind of a trade-off. But one of the ways that folks can get some measure of flexibility is donor-advised funds. Donor-advised funds can be set up today and you get the tax benefit today, but you don't have to designate where you want the money to go until later on. Later on, when you have a chance to think about it and who you want to give to. But if, for example, we're coming to the end of the calendar year, if you know that you want a tax break this year, one opportunity is to establish a donor advised fund. That way you have a set amount of money. Okay, I'm going to give $10,000 to charity, or I'm going to give $1,000, or whatever is the amount. I'm going to give such and such amount to charity or to my beneficiaries, but I don't want to spell out the details until maybe later next year. Well, that's one way that you can do it. So this is one of the techniques that you can talk to an estate attorney about, or a certified financial planner, to get more information if that sounds like something that could meet your needs. So really quickly, I'll just share with you some of the other benefits of some of the estate planning instruments. Income. So it sounds too good to be true, but it's not. There are certain instruments that you can set up where you actually give money, or you set aside money in a trust, like like a charitable annuity or a charitable remainder trust, and you actually can receive income back during your lifetime. So while you're alive, you give the asset away, and then that whoever you give it to, usually a charity like maybe a university or an endowment of some sort of foundation, or your favorite charity, let's say any nonprofit that you know of, which is reputable and able to manage such an instrument. If you This allows donors to receive income during their lifetime, with the remainder going to the charity. So during your lifetime, you would get a certain amount of income every year, or a set amount, and then after your lifetime, whatever's left as the value of the assets in that trust would pass to the beneficiaries that you designate. So it's very interesting, I think, and really helpful to know. Not a lot of people know this, that there are instruments whereby you can set up a trust and you can receive income during your lifetime. And this is very helpful also for folks who have children and grandchildren, nieces and nephews, family members. They want to consider them in their estate planning, and yet they also want to benefit a favorite charity. Well, you can do both. You don't have to leave out your beneficiaries if you want to be charitable to other folks as well. And then lastly, in terms of tax benefits, we talked about some income tax, capital gains tax, estate taxes. You can conceivably get tax benefits through your retirement plan assets. So naming a beneficiary for your retirement accounts or for life insurance policies are two other ways that people can get some benefits, as well as, as a part of making your estate plan. So let's just go over some of the key steps. Okay, so the key steps. Number one, a great place to start is drafting a will, right? Drafting a will, the importance of a legally binding will, so that at any moment you're prepared and your family is prepared and understands what your wishes are. Number two would be establishing a trust. And this is goes kind of in conjunction with the will, and is makes it more explicit and clear. It avoids your estate having to go into the courts to be decided. What did you mean by this? And interpreting the will. A trust makes it crystal clear exactly what it is that you want to happen with your assets. And usually a will and a trust are perfect to work in conjunction with each other. Thirdly, you'll want to think about designating beneficiaries, right? So who would you like to receive the assets after your lifetime? And then make sure that you regularly update if things change, right? Relationships change. We have all kinds of life milestones and circumstances that change. People have children, they get married, they get divorced. There are lots of different shifts and changes. And so you want to make sure that whatever it is that you decide at one point, whenever you have a major shift in your lifetime, then you want to go ahead and make sure that this keeps pace with it. And so that's keeping regular updates and making sure. So there's just so much more to talk about, but I think I'll pause there and give folks an opportunity to ask questions. I think that, if you have a chance to visit legacysuite.com, you'll see that there's a wealth of information. There's a library of videos, a library of PDF documents that can help you just begin to really get your arms around what kind of questions do you want to ask your advisor, and where do you want to go from here? How do you want to sequence the work that there is to do to figure out establishing your will and your trust. Just to give you a little more clarity, we have a will preparation checklist, so you can kind of better understand what you might need, the documents you might need to get ready to put together your will. So there's a combination of personal and family information, so that they'll have the information on who to contact and who the beneficiaries are. There's also the executors and guardians. So who's going to be in charge of making sure that the wishes in your will are implemented? You know, someone's kind of got to be designated to be in charge. And if there are children who are underage to be watched over, then, you know, these folks will be designated and clarify that, right? Then you're going to want to get some documentation on your assets and property so that you can make sure that you have listed what you want to happen with each of those. And then any debts or obligations, you're going to want to mention, you know, what's going to happen with those as well. Your beneficiaries and any charitable giving you might want to make, and then other supporting documentation. So I believe we have that handout for you to be able to take a look at and peruse, you know, at your leisure, and make sure that you have a good understanding of that. And then you'll be able to kind of drill down deeper into each of those topics as you move along. You know, there are a lot of emotions that can come up when establishing an estate plan. And so you want to really be gentle with yourself and make sure that you pace yourself and take your time a little bit, and give yourself a lot of grace as you begin to think through some of these items. So with that, I'll pause and leave some time for questions and answers. I appreciate your amazing attention to this. I hope that was crystal clear, and I'd be happy to drill down a little bit more detail on any items that are of interest.
And as you all think of your questions, I don't have a ton, but as you all think of your questions, we also plan to send follow-up information. So the checklist that Sonia just had on her screen, along with some additional local resources, we thought it was important to make sure that we connect you with other advisors in other roles where you can continue the discussion. So more defining it and understanding the importance of the process was today's objective. And then the next step, right, is hopefully people feel excited and motivated to get towards the action phase and take it beyond the thought. So that will be our follow-up between Dr. Chandler and I to you all after this. All right. So now questions. So we have some kind of organization, because I know all y'all want to unmute at once. If you can either raise your physical hand, Zoom hand, or put in the chat you have a question, then we can kind of go in order so we don't omit people who have a question they would like to ask. So I know y'all ain't shy. I know half of y'all on here. So anybody have any questions or anything?
Terrific. We'll give some people a time to type or think of their questions. Somebody sharing? I thought maybe one of the questions that I get frequently and might be helpful is, what is the difference between a trust and a will, right? And how do they work together? And so in case that's on anybody's mind, I have here a handy dandy comparison, right? So folks can understand a trust and a will, how they work together. And this is through Legacy Suite here. It's in the platform, part of the education that's provided. So a trust is asset management and distribution, which does avoid probate. So going through the courts to determine where all of the assets will go. A will covers guardianship and anything outside of the trust. A will can kind of cover any assets not already covered in the trust. Sometimes maybe you just acquired a new asset or something and didn't have a chance to put it into the trust. The will can kind of capture any and everything. It can put the details of guardianship of minor children. Only a will can name legal guardians for children. Okay, any other personal wishes for funeral or burial instructions, etc., or any other small thing, just to make sure the bases are covered, right? There. So I see now there's some items in the chat, and maybe that'll help clarify some information for folks. Okay, so Trish had that question. Good. I'm glad I was able to cover that.
Yes.
And Carlotta, you're asking.
Oh, I was going to say, oh, you see the chat. Okay, I was going to give you the questions in the chat. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Chandler. Would you like to feel free to amplify questions or whatever you'd like to?
One of the questions that we have from Carlotta Lewis is, so when should you start?
Have you heard of that proverb, when's the best time to plant a tree? You know, 20 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. So you know what? We won't look back. We are just pressing on, right? We start with today. It's really good to start as soon as you can. Start today, because what you can start doing, like according to the checklist, you can start just gathering your financial information, right? You can start today by thinking about, what are my assets? Let me get organized and just gather everything in one place. And what would make sense? You can start to look at what those resources, right, that Dr. Chandler is going to be providing, Dr. Lee will be providing. Give yourself a timeline of, maybe, by the end of the year or this month or whatever makes sense for you, whatever feels comfortable, but not too comfortable, right? You want to push yourself a little bit so that you can continue to take the next step, the next step, the next step. So checklists can be really helpful, but it is important to start today. Start today. Start as soon as you can and get the advice and support that you need from the proper attorneys or financial advisors. Start thinking through organizing your paper. Get yourself a good resource. Legacy Suite has this 90-day checklist that can help you move. You check off what you've accomplished, then you see, okay, my next step is this. So if that kind of structure is useful for you, you can find it there. You can find some things online, and don't be intimidated. What you could even do is find like a buddy or a partner. And if there are more than one person on this call wants to get together and go through a checklist together, all right, y'all, we're going to go through, and this month we're going to tackle item number one. And then everybody kind of support one another to move forward. That's something that can be helpful as well.
Awesome. Our next question is, what are the main differences between a revocable versus an irrevocable trust?
Ah, yes. Okay, another wonderful question. Yes. So it has to do with, so first of all, in terms of like a definition of terms, right? Revocable means you can take it back, right? You can take it back. You can redo, you can make changes. It's uber flexible, right? So you get things kind of laid out and clarified, and it's a legally, I won't say binding, but a legally articulated trust. But if it's the kind of trust that is revocable, you can change your mind about which beneficiaries are named. You can change your mind about how much each beneficiary receives. You can change your mind about timing. It's very flexible. You can take it back. If it's irrevocable, then it's set at that point in time, and you get whatever tax benefits or income benefits, whatever provisions are in an irrevocable trust, then you cannot take it back. You cannot make changes to that trust. So that, as long as the trust is, in force or whatever what have you, then that trust is unchangeable. So that's the main differences between them. But it's risky, it's risky. So if you'd feel more comfortable, so I don't want to give you advice about which way to go. I'm not doing that, but just telling you what some people do for your informational purposes. Some people do it themselves for a couple $100, maybe $100, and then others hire an attorney. It could be a few $1,000s, $2,000 to $3,000 to do a will, a trust. Some folks do like a living trust with your health care directives. They can kind of all be done at the same time. You can, of course, go for the uber expensive version, but a couple thousand to $3,000 is very commonly spent to have an estate attorney or a certified financial planner to walk through and really handle the heavy lifting of doing the documents.
So the next question is from Jill. I have a will, but not a trust. Are there any
Mm.
tax advantages of having a trust?
Ah, I do believe, yes, some of the tax advantages come into having a trust. So, for example, there are estate taxes that can be avoided by putting assets into a trust in advance. If you're including any charities in your estate planning, then there could be benefits of doing that through a trust. So there could be some tax benefits, and you should definitely consult a tax advisor, certified financial planner to get into your specifics. But yes, that's one of the benefits of having a trust and not exclusively or solely having a will.
Okay. Another question about the trust. Who manages the trust for a disabled family member? Can I select the person or does the financial advisor do that? That question is from Angela.
Oh, oh, Angela. Okay, wonderful question. Yes, yes, yes. So, um, there are, so the individual, you yourself, would be the one to designate the caretakers, the advisors. So there is like an executor who is the one who oversees the financial aspects of the estate, right? And then there's like a custodian. A custodian is one who maybe cares for children or loved ones who are disabled or unable to manage for themselves. And so you as the individual would designate both of those, who you want as the executor, so you can make those kinds of decisions. And then the financial advisor or the estate planning attorney would help you to document everything legally so that it all stands up in court. That's their role on this, to make sure that the financial advisor in particular would be looking at what's most beneficial to maximize the assets and the resources to make sure that you make the most of the money. And then the estate planning attorney could really be looking toward the legalities of making sure that everything is articulated in a way that it will stand up in court. Hopefully avoid court altogether because it's so clear.
You've mentioned this before in your listing about the trust. I'm curious about land. My family has land that's been passed down from generations, that before my father passed was in his ownership and then passed to my mother. And now that there are three, I have two siblings, the three siblings are charged to keep the land in the family and to inherit it. I think
Mm.
that's been determined by a will, but it sounds like a trust is another level or an important step in terms of land ownership and possession. Could you talk about the value of constructing a trust when it concerns inherited land, and how that particular asset can and its protection can lead to wealth generation, or what are the ways to not only continue wealth generation, but to foster
Mm.
further income streams around land?
Yeah, yeah, powerful question about the land that we inherit. It's like we really need to protect those assets and make sure that we're maximizing, the benefit of that precious asset. Yeah, so real estate is particularly conducive to being placed in a trust for its protection. It could be the vacant land, a primary home, vacation properties, rental properties. It really is important to avoid probate and confusion about the distribution of land, to place the ownership of that land into a trust and then make transfers smoother. There are times when folks decide that they want real estate disposed of and kind of turned into more liquid financial assets so that it's more easily split among beneficiaries. So all of that can be articulated and clarified in the trust. And there are times when, if charity also comes into play, oftentimes what some folks will do, like for example, maybe not in your specific case, but sometimes there are older individuals who no longer want to be responsible for the upkeep of a home. It's just getting to be too much to keep up for them. But it's appreciated because they've owned the home for like 50 years and now they're just ready to retire and no longer be owners. Well, one of the pitfalls, I guess you can say, that people fall into is they may just sell the house and then they'll be subject to capital gains taxes, and they'll have a really large tax bill from selling the property. Whereas if they put that property in a trust or contributed that property to a charity in a trust, they could avoid the capital gains taxes, and instead they could receive a lifetime income from whatever charity was given that property. So presumably a similar kind of thing could happen with land, but there are just a lot of those kinds of considerations. But a trust is definitely recommended when there's real estate. Definitely there'll be a need to get some good, solid legal and financial advice if the plan is to segment ownership of property or dispose of property in order to distribute the cash to different beneficiaries. It gets a little more complicated, but the trust is a good idea to make it a little bit easier than it would be if there were a will alone.
There's another question in the chat. It says, why should someone with a relatively simple asset portfolio or life situation have a will? When can a portfolio be considered simple?
Ah, yes, simplicity in life. Lovely, elegant simplicity. Well, I would say certainly when there are no children involved, then there's a measure of simplicity there, right? No dependents, I guess you could say, even older parents to care for, whatever, what have you. Then it's very simple. It's simpler, I guess you could say. It's simpler on the simple side. Also, when there are relatively few assets. So if someone doesn't own a home or a car, or life insurance or retirement fund or other assets, that would need to be it would need to be determined, what happens with those things afterwards. Then that's a measure of simplicity also, right? But if once you start to amass some of these items, and even if you don't have children, if you have nieces or nephews that you want to be able to pass on, or if you have an heirloom, or if you have a pet, or if you have property in your home that might a special collection or something like that might mean something to your family, then it can be helpful to articulate, just what is it that you would desire to happen with that. And then, of course, there are personal wishes. Like if you had for your will, if you had an idea of how you wanted to be remembered or what kind of memorial service or that kind of thing that can be articulated in a will as well. Or any kind of a simple document. You can, do that through an actual through the funeral home or whatever have you, can kind of articulate all that if that is the only thing that you're wanting to convey to your loved ones after your lifetime. But if you have other things, then that could be considered simple. If there's very little property, no children or dependents, that's on the simple side.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. So Alexandria is the lucky one. Last question. I guess I'm already reading Dr. Chandler, so I'll just keep reading.
Yes.
How does life insurance fit in with a trust or will?
Ah, yes, life insurance. Okay. Very good question. So with life insurance, in a way, um, life insurance can work alongside a will or a trust. So that because a life insurance has its own set of beneficiaries, right? When you take out the policy, you articulate, where the funds should go at that time. So it kind of stands alone in that way. You don't need the will to be able to articulate the beneficiary. However, if you have life insurance proceeds, or if you want to control the distribution of the life insurance proceeds, then you can name the trust as a beneficiary, right? So you can have the life insurance policy and you can designate individuals, or you can make the trust a beneficiary, especially if your beneficiaries are minors, right? So oftentimes someone will have a life insurance policy and they'll designate their spouse as a beneficiary or something like that. But oftentimes when you have children, you would make the trust the beneficiary of the life insurance, and then you can articulate more detail about how all that gets distributed from within the trust. So there are some things to think about and talk to your advisors about. Again, I wouldn't want to get into more detail, but just to say that they're both really important instruments to have to work alongside one another. One does not replace the other. It's definitely important to have both set up so that they can work in tandem with each other.
Yeah, thank you. I want to take an opportunity to let everyone on the call know that we will be sharing local information about financial advisors and other estate planning attorneys and others who can help you locally and in the area if you're interested in following up on this. And we encourage you, wherever you're joining us from, we know we have people who are joining us from all over the country, to take some of this wonderful advice that we will share with you from Legacy Suite, but also in your area, to connect with a financial professional and maybe ask some of these questions. I want to note that a financial professional that I've connected with during my time in the New River Valley is on this call, Mrs. Deborah Travis. She has several decades of experience as a certified financial advisor. I first connected with Debbie. One of the questions was, when should you start? I first connected with Debbie when I was, and I am not this now, a 29-year-old new assistant professor here at that time at Virginia Tech.
Thank you, Rachel. And in the checklist, you'll see information about Legacy Suites. And that is, again, an organization that Rachel is passionate about, and their mission aligned very much with ours and Sonia. So it took a lot of synergy. We all in two different countries, just with the three of us and doing our planning. So I want to thank you, Rachel. We would be remiss if we did not acknowledge you. So thank you so much for all the meetings and the prep, the planning. It happened. You still can't get rid of us. We still got to talk to you. So thank you so much for all
My
of your
pleasure. Honored. Thank you so much.
You're recorded, so yeah, you can say that. No joking. Thank you. All right. Like Gina said, thank you all for being here. Now we can be done. I just wanted to make sure I gave you a shout out. Thank you all and have a wonderful night. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.